welcome everyone to our December board voting meeting. If you would please join me for the pledge of the flag.
The United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I recently received information on the passing of Mr. Roy Underhill. Mr. Underhill served as a teacher here in Exeter for 35 years at the high school in the social studies department. He was the department chair. He was also a golf coach, a baseball coach, and a founding member of the Exeter Community Education Foundation. So if you would please join me in a moment of silence for Mr. Roy Underhill. Thank you. So welcome everybody. The first thing on our agenda for our voting meeting is an opportunity for anyone in the public to make any comments, anything that might be on our board agenda, or any other topics or issues that might be relevant to the school district, important for the board to hear. Now would be the time. And if you choose to speak, please indicate your name and where you live. Okay, seeing none, we're going to move on to recognitions, and I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Phillips for the recognitions this evening.
Thank you, Dr. Hamburger. I'm going to introduce Mr. Thomas Legath, our athletic director. He will introduce these students as well as the teams for recognition.
Thank you very much. To say that our fall season was less than stellar is not, I can't say that. We had just a spectacular fall season. We have a number of our fall athletes here with us tonight, coaches, and some of the things I do want to say before we get started tonight is our girls water polo team made it to the Eastern Conference playoffs for the first time in their program history. We also had our boys cross country team made it to the county and district meet. Our boys came in second in terms of Berks County of all of our teams in the district meet for 3A, which is another wonderful accomplishment. Our boys soccer team has a very bright future, had a very good year, had a very good start to next year, and are looking really forward to the juniors coming up for next year. And as we introduce the people here tonight, I was thinking about this as I was getting ready to prepare for this, and I thought, to myself, who am I? I'm nobody. I'm just a figurehead. These coaches are the ones who work with our athletes every day, and I'm going to have them speak on behalf of our students tonight. What I'm going to ask is teams and individuals, when you come up, please say your name and what grade you're in, and if you are a senior, where you're looking to go to school. And after the teams are called, the coaches are going to say a few words about your teams or your individuals. So the first team we're going to have, and we can line up across, starting over there at the media table, and working their way this way. We're going to start with our cheerleading team. Nice and loud, left to right.
Ashley Rittner, I'm a sophomore. I'm Rachel Swank, I'm a junior. Blake Young, I'm a sophomore. I'm Sierra Hartline, I'm a junior. I'm Haley Moore, I'm a senior, and I'm located at the University of Pittsburgh. And we're also missing another senior, Caitlin French. She had her on the shirt right now. My name is Kyle Herrick, I'm a junior. I'm Nelly, and I'm a senior, and I'm looking to go to school. I'm Lisa D'Angelo, and I'm a junior. I'm Marina Pinelli, and I'm a sophomore. I'm Marissa Allenberg, and I'm a junior. I'm Annalise Closet, I'm a junior. I'm Justin Nugent, and I'm a freshman. I'm Sophia DePaula, I'm a freshman. I'm Mariah Crawford, and I'm a sophomore. I'm Jason Crawford, I'm a freshman. I'm Julia Mulligan, and I'm a sophomore. I'm Alexander Shaver, and I'm a freshman. I'm Cameron Snell, and I'm a freshman. I'm Anna Henry, and I'm a freshman.
And their head coach, Jackie Klein.
So I just want to thank you for inviting us here this evening. We have an outstanding group of young women here tonight that represent our school on a daily basis. Not only are they amazing athletes, but they are all amazing students. And that's something that I want to highlight more so than anything, is how dedicated they are to their studies and how much work they put into it, and the hard work that they put into cheerleading is a supplement to their education. And I couldn't be more proud of them and how hard they work and the dedication that they have, their families, them, and all of our parents and everybody that is so dedicated to our program. We wouldn't have the success that we have if it wasn't for all of the hard work from these kids. We won our 7th in a row county title, so that was and our 4th district title. We'll be heading to states in January, January 10th and 11th, and nationals February 6th through the 11th. So thank you very much for your support and allowing me to be able to coach these kids and just have a great time doing what we love, which is cheerleading. It's a huge passion, and I can't stress to you enough how amazing they are and how dedicated they are, not only to their studies but to their sport. So thank you.
Okay, congratulations. You guys can step out in the hallway. We're actually going to take a picture. I'm going to ask parents to take a picture of the team, and then I'll connect with you to send it to me so that I can get it out on our social media. But again, congratulations, ladies.
I think you said second.
Up next, the boys water polo team.
You guys are...
Mr. Warren, I'm the senior, I'm looking to go through the Jared Green, I'm ready now.
And there, our coach of the year in Berks County, boys water polo, Mark Rickes.
Thank you. I just found out tonight I was speaking, but Tom is fooling you. We think you're in charge of the whole district, not just a little guy. So this is part of my team, and I asked them to come just to show you some of the quality people that we have over for our water polo team. We went 20 wins this year. So it's the first time we got 20 wins. To give you an example of us compared to other programs, Mifflin has always been a really good program. Mifflin, most programs in the summertime have 2-day practices, an hour and a half in the morning, 2 hours at night. We have the full time for 2 hours. So we fall a little bit behind in the beginning of the year. During the year, some of the teams have morning swim times, and then they have a pool for just the boys team for an hour and a half. We share the pool, which is great that we have a pool, but we share the pool with the girls team for 2 hours. So I'm really proud of these guys because they have to work harder in the time we have to beat Mifflin 3 times this year. We beat them every time we played them. So that was one of our highlights of this year. Obviously getting to a state games for the first time and placing 7th in the state, where some people don't even know we still have a water polo team at Exeter. I'm very proud of them. Coming to Exeter, I never thought I'd be able to coach. I played in high school, and I found out we don't have a pool here, which I'm still holding out a sliver of hope that someday we get our own pool. Just to, think about how good we could be if we had our own pool, man. We would have won the state, I think, this year. But seriously, I have a very heavy senior-laden team this year. We have 10 seniors. We have 10 seniors. Our challenge next year is to get more people out for the team. So if anybody knows anybody that is willing to just come out and try out the sport. When I tried it out in 8th grade, I couldn't swim with my head in the water. I ended up being our captain of our team. So you can learn the sport. It's a great sport. These guys will tell you. And I just want to thank the board for all the support you've given us throughout the year. So thank you.
Thank you, boys water polo. Appreciate it. Congratulations.
So just so everybody understands, the team has this slogan, which is no pool, no problem. Which is pretty impressive when you think about, and my son plays, so I was at the majority of the games this year. First of all, these guys really aren't all that quiet. They're standing in front of people they don't know. But it really is an incredibly fun sport. The equipment costs next to nothing. And these guys did a tremendous job this year against very high odds, and they played with enthusiasm, good sportsmanship, and they did a tremendous job. They're going on to college to play. I think Chris is going to LaSalle, so Explorers are never lost. And Luke is going to the Harvard of the state school system, Bloomsburg, so my alma mater. So, congratulations, but I'm looking forward to seeing you guys playing next year, those that are going on to college. But you guys were great. You had a lot of parents are in the room here who were tremendously supportive. I see Josh sort of hidden back there. Josh does pretty much everything. I was watching him as he was carrying out all the stuff from the game, from the swim meet last night. I was standing there thinking, I should probably be helping him, but he just kind of had it down. But there was a lot of parental support. Mark Ricketts, Mark, I have the Reading Eagle insert here, in which you were listed as the Coach of the Year, so I'll get you to sign that for me. But you guys did a great job, and you should be very proud of yourselves. So congratulations.
Congratulations, guys. Up next, our girls volleyball team. Okay, and I'm going to speak a little bit about their season. Our girls volleyball team over the years is just absolutely phenomenal. And this year in the district semifinals, we lost our first game. So games are best of 5. Typically, well, I guess for 20 matches we won 3-0. And in the district semifinals when we lost our first game, and in volleyball that's like unheard of. So we won the Berks County Championship again, 3-0, and then went on to the district final, and it was just a heartbreaking loss at Dallastown on a Saturday night, but the girls kept their heads up high and came back, and we made the state tournament again. So going to practices and watching these girls play, I mean, the level of play is unbelievable, and they work very hard. Fortunately, their coach was not able to make it here tonight, but I just wanted to congratulate them on again, another successful season. Okay, and now we're going to go to individuals. So next, we're going to introduce our golf coach, John Hadley, and our golfer of the year in Berks County, Alec Sealy.
I'm Alex Sealy, I'm a senior.
I just want to say thank you also for inviting all of these student athletes here tonight. It's a credit to the school district to see them all here and hear about their accomplishments. I brought this along because I need it when I talk about Alex's accomplishments over the last 3 years with the golf team. He was runner-up in the Berks County Championship in 2016, and he is a repeat champion in 2017 and 2018. That puts him in a very lofty position when you look at the winners of the Berks County Championships, which date back to the 1940s. He is only one of 6 players to have won 2 consecutive championships. He also presented us with our first three-peat in medals in the District 3 Championship in 2016, finishing 6th, in 2014, finishing 4th, and this year, runner-up. In golf, we have an additional qualifier to get to the state tournament, which is the Eastern Regional BIA tournament. Alex became the first Exeter golfer to qualify for 3 years in a row, finishing 6th as a sophomore, 4th as a junior, and 20th this year as a senior. He followed that up with a 3-year trip to the state tournament, something that has never been done in the history of Exeter golf. In 2016, he finished 20th. In 2017, he became Exeter's first medal winner in over 40 years, finishing 5th at the state tournament. And this year, he finished 28th. So there are a number of firsts. And if I go back to the county event, he's the first Berks County champion from Exeter in 47 years. Along with that, over the last 3 years, he was All-County as a sophomore, All-County and runner-up for Player of the Year in 2017, and Player of the Year this year. He's also going to be receiving an award that is presented. It's called the Penta Award. Dr. Penta set an award aside for golfers who represent golf not only as an outstanding player, but as an outstanding student and as an outstanding person in the community. So he will be receiving that additional award at the, I guess, the senior awards in the spring. And obviously, he's a scholarship winner at Robert Morris. We're proud of him. We're proud of what he's done and the way he's represented the school district and our program. Thank you.
Alex, just one question. What are you going to do with your sports management degree?
I'm looking at, I'm going into a sports agency, looking at the field. I feel like we can work really well with other athletes and make good money in the zone. So,
Be your own agent.
yeah,
Right?
hopefully.
The PGA, right?
Yeah,
All right.
hopefully.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
So, Ann, that's one of the reasons in my budget. So next, we're going to introduce our girls' head soccer coach, Charlie Messner, recognizing Jackie Richards.
Hi, I'm Jackie Richards, and I'm going to Lakeland University.
Good evening. Thanks, Tom. I coached many years at Antietam and Mount Penn soccer and all these programs around, and he asked me if I wanted to do junior high a few years ago, so I did junior high for 3 years. I told him I'd give him 4 years and that's it. this year he came and said, can you jump up to the high school level if we have the opening? So, well, let me just see what happens. And it happened, so I had to jump in and apply for it and get the job. One thing, I talked to Jackie. I saw Jackie at the gym. I helped out with the varsity team last year besides junior high, because I knew the coach. And I saw Jackie at the gym. I said, Jackie said, one thing we have to do is, I know you're going to be good. I said, but your main function is to help with all the youngsters that we have to build up the program so the program stays good for a while, not just 1 year and done. And she did a fantastic job doing that. And along the way, she garnered lots of awards and helped us out tremendously. The team this year ended up 7 wins, 3 losses in the league, in our division, which usually Parapole, Wilson, and Mifflin are always usually in first place. And so we came in second place this year ahead of Mifflin. Jackie said she never beat Governor Mifflin. We beat them one time during the year. Then we beat them in the first round of the districts at Mifflin yet to make it to the second round, so that's quite an accomplishment. We ended up with 14 wins, 6 losses. Those 6 losses came to teams that were listed as either 7 down through 1 in the district. So everybody we lost to was a high qualifying team that made it to districts and some made it to states. We led the Berks League in scoring with 70 goals. Jackie herself had 22 goals, 10 assists. She led the league in scoring. For her career, she ended with 49 goals and 18 assists. And she would have had many more goals this year, and basically she didn't because it was my fault. We played 4 games against some really, really weak teams, so she got to play about maybe 18 minutes out of 80. So she could have scored more, but that's on me. At the coaches All-Star voting, she garnered the most votes of anybody in Berks County. Credit to her. With that, she earned her All Berks County. The top 3 vote getters in the voting also make the All-State team, so she was voted the All-State team. And then since she was the leading vote getter in the voting, she was the Berks County Girls Soccer Athlete of the Year, Soccer Player of the Year also. Okay. And along with this, she just found out when we had our banquet, she didn't know this, and I just broke it to her that night. Because the coaches said, I said, what about this? They said, they'll talk about the regional American, and he said, you got to make the All-State team at least twice to get anything near that. Well, I found out then a few days before the banquet, let her know at the banquet, she also was earned the rights to represent us on the regional All-American team. She's going to be attending Xavier University in Ohio. She's going to major in exercise science, and she is earning a scholarship for academics and soccer together. So congratulations, Jackson. So as I said, with Jackie, who was such a leader, I would get the team, give him a pep talk. I'd walk away. She'd get involved and give him another pep talk. And she was, I think we need to do this. Okay, Jackie, we'll work on this. And so it was like having another coach on the field, so she was outstanding. She's a fantastic young lady. Congratulations.
Okay, and our last athlete we're going to honor tonight is Peyton Halsey and her coach, Lisa McCoy.
I'm Peyton Halsey, and I'm headed to Northwestern University.
Hi everyone, thank you so much for having us. 4 years ago, well, I actually 5 years ago heard about this phenom who was coming up, something for us to look forward to, and she hasn't disappointed. This year our team was very successful. We were 9-1 in the league. We were 20-3 overall. We made it to the county championship playoff, losing to Ole in a disappointing 3-2. We continued on into the districts, making it into the second round, and we never would have gone that far if it wasn't for our senior captain, Peyton Halsey. Peyton, as a player, has become the 6th player in Berks County to score a career over 100 points, finishing up the year with a total amount of 106 goals and I don't know if you know this, but 52 assists. Okay, and what's important about those numbers is one thing, it shows that she is aggressive, but it also shows that she shares the ball, that she's not a ball hog, she's not taking the glory for herself. And that's one thing that is extremely impressive, and I know Jackie the same way. She's a leader on the field, not just her skills, but with her ability and teaching the other kids and the younger kids. It's really neat to see the younger kids come up to her and say, Peyton, can you show me how to do this? Or, Peyton, I'm doing it this way, what's wrong? And she'll, take the time and give them, some tips and some comments on what to do. Peyton also works with some of the little kids too, bringing them along and helping them to grow as well. She was named to the All-Berks team all 4 years since she was a freshman. This year she was named to the All-Berks team and also named as our most valuable player for Division I in Berks County. She has been named to the All-State team, first team for the last 3 years. She, as she said, is going to go to Northwestern, but in her spare time she also represents the national team. She represents the United States. Hockey is what she does, not what she does best though, because she's also been acknowledged as as the Pennsylvania State National Student Athlete, having a GPA of 3.9, which is extremely impressive. So Peyton is definitely a force that we're going to miss in the years to come.
Peyton, what are you going to study at Northwestern?
Probably psychology.
So Northwestern, for folks know, Northwestern's sort of like an Ivy League school in the Midwest. It is a very significant academic institution. And I think for you to get in there is a real tribute, not just to your efforts and to the work that you've done, but also it's a shining light for the school district to be able to see that we can put somebody into Northwestern. And my way of thinking is going to Northwestern is no different than really going to Harvard or Yale. So congratulations. I think that's very exciting and well deserved.
Congratulations, Peyton. And, living in the district that I live in and going to the grocery store that my wife sends me to every single night, I'm always wearing Exeter. That's all I wear. And sometimes people will look at me and they'll come up to me and then they'll say, so Exeter, is that where Peyton Halsey goes? I said, yes, it is. But again, I just want to say congratulations to all of our fall athletes, our sports teams. We had a wonderful, unbelievable fall. It was a lot of fun. Coaches did a wonderful job. Kids, worked hard, and that's what it's all about. So I thank you very much for having us tonight. I hope everybody has a great night and a happy holiday. Thank you.
I would really like to congratulate Tom and his efforts. If you go to any of our sporting events, Tom there are times when I've been to several events in the night, and Tom is there as well. So I'm very impressed with the effort that he makes. I know he gets a lot of crap at times, especially from parents, but I think he deals with it very well and very professionally, and appreciate, Tom, the efforts that you represent on behalf of the school district, on behalf of the administration as well, because we should only be so lucky that we get these many people to turn out for an academic discussion as we do an athletic discussion. So athletics are as important to the development of our students as anything else we do, and I appreciate your effort in staying on top of all that as well.
Thank you very much.
If I can just add to that really quick, I have the privilege of being the chairperson of the athletics committee, and I would just say that Tom's probably the administrator that I got to talk to most this past year, and he is just phenomenally dedicated and very responsive to anything that I've needed. I just wanted to thank you, and I think it's so cool that you get to bring some of the people that you get to see more often than not, and I hope that their programming with you, specifically with the team captains, is really working to their advantage, and they're able to take that to the schools that they go on to.
Thank you.
Yeah, but we need more athletes going to Albright. I'm just, that's a problem.
Albright needs more.
That's fake news.
Excellent. We're going to move on to the program, and our next part of our agenda in the future, Dr. Joe Swafford will be here, and visiting the building program.
Don.
The audience heard you were speaking and they all left.
Wow. At first I thought they were all coming here to see me tonight. I initially thought, it's not hard to follow that act, people doing stuff that no one's done in 47 years, and people winning wars and all that. It's an easy act to follow right there. My board report was presented, what you received it on Friday. You know, we're continuing to plug away in our PSSAs, doing things like implementing Dreambox. We had a big implementation this year. We're doing differentiation in our classroom, and it was a struggle. It was a struggle in the beginning. It was a giant struggle for us to, for our teachers. It was a big undertaking, and things have finally settled down, and I think we're in good shape right now. But it was a lot of hard work. It was a lot of good work. And we continue to do things using our aides for the most. So we have fantastic aides, and I think, like for the district, I know it's like always looks as an expense, and always looks like something that is it is probably the most valuable thing dollar for dollar that we do in this district. We have aides that are just absolutely phenomenal. It's like having teachers in the building, people that have been trained over the years, people have learned our curriculum, people have learned how to work with kids, how to reach kids. Our aides do just an absolutely outstanding job, and I hope it's something that the district will always continue to do and value, because they do, and districts that don't have it, and I taught in places where we didn't have it, and I was principal in places where we didn't have it, and it's really, really a plus. So we're going to keep plugging away and doing our very best. We hired some new staff this year, the most probably since I've been here in 19 years, and boy, we really hit some home runs with people that we hired. We hired some people from Muhlenberg. We hired a teacher that moved down out of special ed into regular ed from Reichton. We had some friends and people that I went to Widener with and did my doctoral work at Widener, who said, listen, I got a gal who's a superstar, bring her in. Just living up to that reputation. So it's been a very successful year of hiring, and that's really what it's all about. I think like that day that we hire people in the district is probably, as I've looked at over my career, is probably the most important day of the year. The people that we put in these positions, because that's, you know, they're going into work and they're closing their door and they're plugging away. And, you know, I'm not in there micromanaging what anyone does. It's up to them. We give them an opportunity. They've been trained, and finding people that not only can do the job, but people who fit into the culture and people who fit into being team players. It's been something I've believed in since day one, and I'll continue to believe in until the last day, that school culture, school climate, and people working together that's who wins the championship every year. When you look at any sports team, it's the teams that play together that do well. And it's something that we always go back to. Like I always say, that's our play. It's 3rd and 8. We need the first down. That's our play. We're going to go to the part where everybody's working together. That's our play. So we really had a great hiring group this year. The outside doors, thank you for the outside doors. It is like such a benefit to our schools. They close. Then we have alarms. We have no pain out there. Like people would say, "Look, you work at that school. I thought that school was abandoned." Like someone said to me one time, the rims didn't have nets on them. The doors were, you know, it's such a nice thing. Our doors are great. Thank you. People are so appreciative of that, as well as the work you did in the lobby. Honestly, I feel more secure. Like at first, I thought it was, you know, a lot of, you know, we're answering the questions of the state, and we're doing things that other schools are doing. But I feel safer in that building, and we were talking about it today. Everyone does. So thank you for that as well. You know, that's an important thing. People come in. Sometimes they try to make that way through. It's like, hey, they can't go that way anymore. Before, they would just have free access to our school. Now people come in. They know the routine. They come in. We have to buzz them in twice. We have a good idea. They just moved the camera maybe about 2 weeks ago or so. We have a new monitor. The old one used to jump up and down the whole day. you look at the screen, it was going up and down. Like, I don't know how our secretaries didn't lose their mind. It was like that for years. Just like going up like a movie, like a projector that was stuck. So again, nice upgrade for our school, for sure. A lot of things kind of at Jackson Hole that were in disrepair, and I'm glad to see that it's really coming alive there.
How's your heat?
Today, great. No, I mean,
Better be good.
our chillers and boilers, they did a nice job. I mean, there's growing pains, there's no doubt, going through that this summer. I did that work. I know what they were doing, which was, I think, advantageous for us, because I could walk around and see what they were doing every day. And I was able to ask questions that were, you know, to let these guys know that, hey, listen, you know, I know what's going on. You can't do this here. Like, this can't be your move here. What's your move over here? You can't do that. Like, so there were some challenges. I mean, they went through the middle of our school, through 2 classrooms, up to the roof. They cut into our brand new roof. There were lots of things that had to be repaired. The boiler and chiller seemed to be working just perfectly. As far as the unit vents in the classroom, I mean, that's to be understood. Nothing changed there. So we still have basically the same problems we had last year. But we have a new place to build from. And I think that's the plan that Ed Mangold has, is to do the unit vents over the summer. And I mean, without that, like, they were in the other day. There was a leak in the one of the unit vents in the faculty room. It was like 90 in there. You could turn the heat off, and then it's 45. So they had to like take parts out of one and jump tubes into another one, and so it'll be fine now until spring comes. As soon as we need air conditioning, it starts to get hot, then someone has to come in from Siemens again and then try to figure out what happened and how they reversed that to go back in there. So those problems exist. It's old. Stuff is 30 years old. The plastic tubing is cracking. There's problems with the. It's just old. It's just old stuff. That's all.
But are you, so I know there's a next phase, so the next phase will solve that?
Yes. I mean, yeah. The next phase definitely should be in a situation where a lot of the problems that we have is that the school is required to bring in X amount of fresh air, as all public buildings, and you know. So there's valves for each one that go to the outside. Each one of those unit vents has an opening to the outside air. And so the temperatures inside the room dictate how that valve is taking in how much hot air and cold air based on the outside temperature as well. So there's a lot of moving parts. And when things are old and like valves don't work like they should, and don't close like they should and things, it doesn't matter how much hot water is going through the system. If it's blowing cold air over the top of them at too much of a rate, it's going to be a problem. So, the new system, as Ed explained it to me, and I talked to guys that do this for a living as well, it's supposed to be getting air from one central area and piping it to all the unit vents, eliminating all the venting. That basically is the problem. Because sometimes it's bringing way too much hot air in the summer, and I don't care how much cold water is going through those pipes. If it's forcing too much hot air over there, hot air is coming out of there. So, I know far too much about the HVAC system at Jackson Hole, for sure. And here as well. We had the similar problems here when I was here. I can tell you all the rooms in this building right now where there are problems. I know that, I could go through and point them all out. I know that. We have the cameras in there, which is a little bit freaky, to be honest with you. A lot of people are freaked out with all the cameras all over the place, but little bit by little bit, people are forgetting. Like, people's like, I kind of feel weird with all the cameras around. But it's, I see the value. I don't look at them ever. There's no reason to. When I first saw them, I was like, wow, I could watch what's going on in the school. But of course, that was like one day. After that, I have things to do. I can't still look at that. But it's nice to have them if things do go wrong. We have pretty good. I don't understand why it's like a backwards view. You notice that? Do you know that's how it is? Like, the things outside are backwards. So there's a camera out there, and things that are really on the left are really on the right. It's kind of crazy. I think I put it upside down. I don't know. But there's a lot that we could see, and it's good. I really like the fact that we moved the new one, and we could see who's coming in the building. That's a great one. Classroom dojo, some of our new teachers brought in. which has really been supportive of our behavior program. And it really allows the teachers to access parents immediately because they're on email. The kids love it. And it's something that, like I said, the people that we've hired used it in other districts. And it's been a great help. So more and more people are getting on that train. We're probably at about 50% now, maybe a little bit more than 50%. Like, I didn't make it that anyone had to do it. If they want to do it, they want to do it. Sometimes we have a lot going on, and I'm not just looking to do things for the sake of doing it. And as people see value in it and they want to do it, we have people that can show them how and train them, and it's not that hard. But it's been nice. I thought, we'll see how it goes, and if it loses its luster or if it loses its efficiency, but that's not been the case at all. Matter of fact, it's kind of getting better. Observations to this point, with all these new people, of course I'm doing a lot more observations. But having done 10 formal observations probably by the end of October, beginning of November, which is like way more than I do. It's time consuming. It's very time consuming. But it's like I have to get ahead of it. We have a lot of people that I have to observe. So I've been busy on that front. Other than that, no awards, no reports, no accolades.
Dr. Schwammer, I do have a question.
Yes.
In your portion about chillers and boilers, you said we're still experiencing the same problems as in years past. You don't mean you're still running heaters and fans and all that, right?
Yes. Yeah, but I mean that's you know I mean that what we changed is we were getting cold water to the univents, and we were getting hot water to the univents, but those were the problems in the classroom. The individual units were the classroom. So the plan that Ed Mangold has laid out is that they started with essential system, which he says is the heart, which his description is that's the heart of the system, and that's where they had to start to go from there, and then go out to the arteries and fix the univents in the classroom, replace them, and put vertical univents in the classrooms, and then everything should be perfect at that point.
You're more satisfied.
I mean, I'm satisfied because I know the end is near. I know that, that if things continue like they're supposed to be done, then it's going to be much better.
Light at the end of the tunnel.
There's light at the end of the tunnel, yeah. Oh, I'm hoping it's not a train coming at me, but there's light there, yeah. Yes, sir.
So now we have the HVAC on its bed, and we're happy. What is the one thing you're seeing in the building you would like to see improved? Or top three?
Top three?
Well,
we need a better principal to start off with. That's the first thing they need in that building. You need a better principal in that building. No, I
can get it this time. No, seriously, how are we doing facility-wise? What other things are you noticing that are standing out there?
The building's old. I mean, there's a lot of things in kind of disrepair. I mean, there's no doubt. I'm sure we're not the only building in the district. There's things that I'm aware of our staff and what the people that we have that that are coming to do the repairs. They have like lots of stuff to go to all the buildings. It's a big job. I mean, there's some things that definitely could be improved upon, with the physical plant for sure. But
are you getting all the educational needs they need? Are you seeing something where if the teacher had a certain tool, you feel they could reach the teacher, reach the students in a better way or a more productive way, or so they could touch the children in a way that could bring them more into whatever they taught at that time?
I think our teachers have what they need, what they need to be successful. We have a good group of people that are working hard every day. I don't see anything glaring like, outside of, we're doing the curriculum, we're following the plan, we're working, the system, and people are plugging away. I think over time, I've worked in school districts before where you get to the point where it becomes difficult if you don't maintain staff levels to address all the needs for the kids. It can become overwhelming. And it's very, very difficult. What I've seen in past districts is it becomes overwhelming to try to recover. So if we stay ahead of the curve, like we have an additional learning support teacher that's going to be coming on board for the remainder of the school year. Well needed, completely needed. If we can do those kind of things and make sure we always have people and have, you know, that we don't get overrun, we have 19, 20, 30 kids in a special ed classroom, we're in trouble. So especially with our differentiation, because we have a whole lot more children back in regular classrooms, we need to have people to go out there to work with them. So I think that was, again, something we needed and something that's a benefit. But overall, you know, it's generally a happy place. We come together, they're not doing jumping jacks on Monday morning, they can't wait to come to work. But we don't have problems, we don't have adult problems. We have people working together for the common good of children. And our village kind of been like it's been for a long time, and everyone kind of knows what we do. Everyone understands what our culture is, everyone understands what our mission is. I'm not out there micromanaging what people do. They have a job, I have a job, we go about our business. You know, we have fun, we do what we want to do, but we go about our business.
Shopper? Oh, sorry. It's me tonight. Well, I think everyone can hear me. Based on your PSSA scores, is there any interventions or initiatives that you're implementing to try to increase those?
Well, sure. I mean, our differentiation, certainly our differentiation is the direction that we're going.
Okay.
Is this the one? No, yours went out. Mine went out too. The battery, it's red.
Is it red?
It's red.
I got you. The battery's not.
We're talking that much.
Check that connection.
I'll point and refocus.
With it all.
Oh,
Gonna get the energized.
you pulled them both out, it sounded great.
Now I can get back
Say
there.
none of the other. Say none of the other.
You're halfway there.
Well, that means we're all out then.
Oh, sorry.
So,
That would be funny.
No, you're good. You disconnected the circuit. It was Jerry's fault, he was the one who used the mic.
Usually it's just how it's done.
A little less.
Volume.
But
I think that, again, our curriculum in special education it was making it hard for our students to be exposed to the kind of materials and to be successful in the kind of things they need to be successful in PSSA. I remember a time back years ago, and you know, they keep ramping up the testing, you know that yourself, it's like the demands that they have on their children to do TDAs and to do, you know, the different kind of things, to make comparisons and to read and make inferences, and it's a difficult task for our top students. And a lot of our learning support students within their curriculum weren't being exposed to that. So this year going to the differentiation, which I said was really a big undertaking. It was certainly a big undertaking. We're exposing children to a whole lot more and giving them opportunities to do that. We're bringing in Dreambox as a technology piece to supplement our math curriculum. Again, we're using our aids in a way that we are supporting the children the best that we could. Yeah, we have a lot of things going on. You know, at the top of my head, just for some things.
I just wanted to ask two questions related to Jacksonville being the ESL center of the district. I'm not really sure what that means. Could you kind of expand on how Jacksonville is the ESL center? And I'm also curious, are there alternative testing methods that students can take with PSSAs, like an aide can read them the test, or they can answer questions orally or something like that for special ed students? I'm just curious about those two things, because it was my understanding that they could, and I don't know if that's correct.
They could to some degree. It depends what's written into their IEP. And as well, yeah, we take advantage of every one of those situations. What we found out in testing is really having the most amount of people that we could use to diversify and have the most small group settings to work with the kids that we know need the most help is what we do. So when PSSA is going on, we probably have every available person in every available space used to the max. As far as the ESL students going, when we first started that whole situation, Jackson Wald and Lorraine had the most students, and it was thought that it would be best for all the students to be in one spot because the teacher was going around to 3 buildings and wasting a lot of time going to the 3 schools. So, you know, Jackson Wald was picked to be the place where we have the ESL center, so all the students are bused from all the buildings to Jackson Wald.
And that's only elementary students?
It's only up to K to 4, yes.
Okay. So for the 11 students are Jackson Wald students, are those, so what was the difference between the 11 students that are Jackson Wald and I guess the 13 others who are counted?
No, I'm just saying that we have 24 students, and 11 of them are our students, and 13 students come from the other buildings.
Okay, I see what you're saying. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
Thanks, Dr. Sloan. Oh, Pat has a question.
No, I was just going to say, I personally think testing children, every child, every year, from 3rd grade to 8th grade, is absolutely ridiculous. I think it should be, I think that needs to be revisited by the state. I don't know how you feel about it, Dr. Schoffer, but that's the way I feel about it. And I have an article that has to do with the absurdity of testing every child every year.
I agree with you like more than 1,000%. I think we get to the point where children get to the point where these tests mean nothing, and that's got to be our biggest. It has to be our biggest fear. I know my son's in junior high school, and you know he plugs away, he does his best, but like there's definitely children at that point already, and they're shared that with you. And I don't know what happens at the high school, but you get to the point where kids are going, you know, enough already. They're just putting down like A, B, 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 and turning in their papers. And there's no need to it. I saw 3rd grade students, 8 years old, that had more testing in a week than I had to do to get my doctoral degree. And my comps were not as demanding as 8-year-old kids had in 3rd grade in a week's time. Which is, where are we going? What's our plan? What's the end game there? I don't know. But
So what can we do? Do we lobby our legislators, or do we talk to the Department of Ed, or what can we do to, or is that a federal? I guess that's a federal law, isn't that what we test these kids every year?
I don't think it's a federal. I don't know. I don't know the answers to that. Is it federal?
Yeah, well, it was No Child Left Behind, and now it's every student.
Every student succeeds at.
Yeah.
I think like some places where the parents are starting to revolt and like saying, guess what, they're all going in and opting their children out. I saw some school districts that started that. I don't think that's completely that children should never be tested, but there's got to be a...
Well, you know what it is when I see it, it's a big win for the testing company, and they make billions on it. So instead of having the money for the child, we're giving all these billions to, what is the testing place that they have?
ERC. ERC, data recognition.
Data recognition. No, there's another one though.
ETS is the other big one, Educational Testing Service.
No, there's not. But it's ridiculous. I personally think it is ridiculous.
Thanks, Dr. Schlumper. We'll move on. Thanks so much for your presentation. Thank you. Okay, our next presentation this evening actually will be Mrs. Guy, through the 2019-2020 preliminary general fund budget. Mrs. Guy.
You missed it.
As we're waiting, maybe, I know we have some things that need to be signed. They're sitting in front of you there to your right.
Oh, they're all
Yes. Yes. They're all signed. Has everybody had a chance to sign this?
Mike didn't.
Could you you hand those down to anybody who hasn't signed them. Just want to remind folks that we'll be, after this meeting, we'll be taking a group picture right here in
Against the white wall.
I was like, felt fresh when I first came down there. Yeah.
Emerald City comes to an
Yeah. All right, maybe we feel bad. Anybody else want to do compliments of me?
At work, actually, that's what we start every meeting with, a jar of candy at the table.
We're probably going by the end.
Hint.
That would be good, I mean.
Well, we don't have to do it for
No, you're right.
Jared, would that account for the high dental bills in that township building? Dental bills? Our dental bills aren't high. That's what it is a month. Is that enough? Okay, it's not that. For a single person, it's $34.33. You're a married couple.
She has her presentation up there. Presentation.
Yeah, she was like sending that one.
With children, it's 63 something, and an adult with children.
Okay, we're ready to start it? We're ready to start.
Have to use the mic unless you can't hear me, then I'll grab the mic, but I'm gonna try and. Loud enough?
Yeah, you have to.
Can you use the mic, please? I mean, I'm gonna make sure they get some of that on the video. For all the people who watch on YouTube.
On C-SPAN.
Yeah.
Is there a following?
Oh, look. 7 of them are 100 every month. All right. It's not special.
Over the past few months, we have been meeting as Business Function Committee and looking at different segments of the budget, revenue sources, and the expense side, looking at the different functions, instruction, support, extracurricular, and then the objects. So to get a better feel for what is really in the budget, and I really appreciate the people who attended. I did provide everyone with the handouts from those meetings, and there's an open invitation if you ever want to meet with me to go through the detail. I'd be happy to do that because it's a very large budget, a lot of pieces, and to try and summarize it in one night is difficult, but we are at the juncture now to prepare or look at the preliminary budget. This is our first look at this. The timeline, Act 1 dictates the timeline. School boards have the choice of adopting a preliminary budget, which if you are approved for exceptions, referendum exceptions, that's showing that your costs are increasing, you have a need to increase your millage above the Act 1 index. So we started preparing the budget in October, things were due by the end of November. I wrap it all up as best I can to show you in December what it looks like. So January 15th would be the deadline if the board would decide to adopt a resolution to stay within the index and not adopt a preliminary budget. Last year, it was the first year, or for the 18-19 school year, the board adopted that resolution and did not adopt a preliminary budget. We didn't have exceptions that were worth applying for. So again, January 8th, I will be coming back with an update to the preliminary budget. The board will have to decide January 15th whether they want to adopt that resolution to stay within index or allow us to do a preliminary budget, which I'll show you in a few minutes. We do qualify for some exceptions according to my estimates at this point. And it looks like the budget, we could use those exceptions and raise millage. So if we do a preliminary budget, it's due by February 19th. So a lot of you are aware of this. You know, Act 1 limits the increases. I mentioned the exceptions. Why do a preliminary budget? Why we've done it in the past, if we had exceptions that we qualified for, there's unpredictable variables. We won't know what the state allocation of funds will be, and there's unfunded mandates imposed by the state. So taking that route does offer flexibility. But approving a preliminary budget and applying for exceptions does not mean that the school board will increase taxes by the index or utilize approved exceptions. And I'll show you a slide later that in most years in the past, we go through the process, maintain a little bit of flexibility, but we are cognizant of what the board is of the tax increases and use of exceptions. So preliminary budget, everyone puts in their needs, their program needs, including new staff, educational resources that are needed, but it's a constant review and prioritizing of needs with the goal of spending more efficiently while not sacrificing the education of students. So it's a long process, which really starts in October and goes through June. The School Districts Act 1 index, and it's an adjusted index because of our market value aid ratio, 0.5514, the second line there. We get an adjustment, and the Act 1 index for 1920 is 3%, which our current millage is 32.6214, excuse me, and a 3% increase would allow for a millage of 33.5978, or almost a mill increase. The value of 1 mill in this district is 1.375 million, so just under that is within the index, the additional revenue that would be generated if the board would, excuse me, oh, thank you. Okay, great, yeah. In addition, the exceptions, special education exception, excuse my column, kind of squeeze everything out there. What we look at in the special ed exception is the cost compared from 16-17 compared to 17-18. There was a significant increase in cost. The exception that we may qualify, but based on my estimate, could be about 740,000 retirement contributions because of the increase in retirement employer contribution rates. We may qualify for this as well. So there could be an additional amount of millage related to exceptions. And what this really means is our costs are going higher or increasing at a higher rate than what the index of 3% allows. So at this point, in the preliminary budget numbers, considering the index and exceptions, 1.58 mil increase up to 34 would be the maximum. But as I mentioned earlier, going through the preliminary budget process, applying for exceptions, does not mean that that's what we're going to end up doing in the proposed final. Looking at this column here, these are the increases since 10-11, the past 8 years. 1 year we did raise to the index recently. A couple years, no increase. 1 year, in 13-14, we took a part of the exception. In all these years, excluding this current year, we did go through the preliminary process. We applied for the exceptions, but by the time we finished our review of the budget, and in May, the board adopted budgets that were below the index, at the index, and used very little exceptions.
And on your slide there, you have, what is your last column displaying?
Cumulative amount of exceptions not used. These were the amounts that we had applied for and were approved. It's this column, and then I accumulated it down here. So out of all of these exceptions, these were our costs that were rising above the index. We did not use it. We paid only $39,000 for a special ed exception in 13-14. After the budget was reviewed, over the months, it was determined that we did not need those as part of the tax increase.
So you're showing that over 9 years, we forwent $10.5 million.
Correct.
So does that concurrently mean that we raised taxes $10.5 million?
No, it means we did not raise it by an extra $10.5 million, and that's why we're running out of money.
Really what it means, when you're preparing a preliminary budget, and you'll see in the next few slides, there are a lot of requests that are put in. But we as administrators are just starting the process of prioritizing and looking at the staff requests, figuring out, well, maybe we don't need that, maybe we can do it another way. The expenses, it's so early in the year, people getting a good estimate on textbook costs or licensing or even the technology, the Chromebooks. You know, we put in our administrators put in the amounts that they have knowledge of, but as the months go on, we refine the numbers, and there was not the need in most of those years to use those, is what it comes down to. So getting to the punchline here. 1920, the final, the column on the right, revenue, $75.5 million, no tax increase. Our expenses in the preliminary budget have topped $80 million. So we're looking at a deficit of $4.7 million at this point in time. This is the original budget for this year. It was adopted almost $2 million deficit. For the next presentation, I will be updating this for the estimate of revenue and expense. But right now, we are only going to compare to the original budget. And this is where we ended up in the actual. So why are our expenses increasing? Well, we'll get to that point. Property assessed value. 85% of our local revenue is based upon our property real estate tax. And it's based on our assessed value of all the property in this district. So the number that we're using is this amount, and it comes from the county abstract, and I make some assumptions about interims, those new construction, but also some appeals that we're going through. So based upon this information and assumption about a collection rate, no tax increase would generate about $44 million in real estate tax revenue, which is a slight increase over the current year.
Can I ask a question about that? There was an article in the paper this week where the Giant property is potentially going to be acquired by the township. I think there's still speculation. But if that were to come off the tax rolls, would the township doesn't believe it pays the school district tax?
No, they don't.
So have we thought about the impact on the budget if that went off the tax rolls?
I have not included that, but for the next, if it becomes something that a good possibility it'll happen, then I'll have to reflect it here. And that amounts to between $125,000 and $150,000. So I would have to make that adjustment to tax revenue. Again, this is just a bar chart of our assessed value. Looking at a summary of local, state, and federal revenue, comparing original budget to next year, local revenue, $452,000. The largest part of that would be interest from investments, a $210,000 increase. And then across the board, there's minor increases in Act 511 taxes, which are your earned income tax, business privilege tax, possibly some additional interim. So overall, about $452,000. State taxes, state sources of revenue, it's actually showing a decrease. And as we had discussed at a prior business function committee meeting, rental and sinking fund, this is the reimbursement from the state for the debt that we pay on our bond issues. The 1994 issue is paid off at the end of this year. So, and that had a very high reimbursement rate. So we are seeing a decrease in this source of revenue, but also on the expense side, we are also going to see a decrease in debt service. But net impact is over $200,000 to the fund balance. So we are, because it was such a high reimbursement rate, we are, losing additional revenue of about $200,000. I'm assuming for the basic ed and special ed that we may get the same amount that additional amount. There's talk out there, 400 million, 450. So I am being less than conservative and saying, well, maybe we'll get additional funds in basic and special ed. Again, the retirement rate going up to 34.29 will generate additional revenue because our expense is also higher. Federal programs, I base it on what we currently have. And as I mentioned, I'll update these numbers estimate for the next presentation. Proceeds from extended term financing, that reflects if we were to lease purchase our Chromebooks. And you'll see a little later, there's a lot of replacing that needs to be done and new requests coming in for that. So we reflect the source of revenue of financing that comes in, but then we also reflect the actual cost of the asset on the expense side. So the only thing that really hits your expense or net or your fund balance is the financing cost. Again, this is an eye test. Can you please read? We looked at projection of enrollment at our prior meetings. Everyone is aware that we have gone down over the years. And this is a slide from some software we use for CAS 5. The projection is that it will gradually go down. My point here is that it's important, and we'll continue to do this, to look at student to staff ratios. Moving on to the expenditures, again, budget to preliminary, almost 5 million or 4.5% increase. And the majority of it has to do with employee wages and benefits. There are some minor changes in some other function codes, but let's just take a look at the new staff requests that we will begin the process of prioritizing. Okay, this is some detail on the wage budget for you to review. Again, increases are contractual, which are between 2.5% to 3% for next fiscal year. But the new staff does impact a lot of the increases. But also keep in mind, if you do see decreases, we have turnover, so that does impact the budget as well, and we take all of that into consideration. The benefit budget, I'm assuming 9.5% at this point for a premium increase. That was the increase this year. Most likely that will go down, and that will be reflected in the budget process. Retirement, again, the 34.29% compared to 33.43% for this year. So the main drivers again are healthcare and retirement. And this slide displays the retirement rate and the projections for the next few years. So on a net basis, after the expense less what we're reimbursed, it's increasing, 300,000, then we'll gradually go down a little bit. So we're about the 300,000 range per year based upon the current rates, and assuming that our payroll will continue to increase about 3%. So again, this is obviously has grown to a huge budget line item over the years, from up to $6 million by 23. New staff requests, again, as I said, we will be prioritizing these, but 1.34 million, that includes benefits. These are positions that different staff members, administrators feel that are needed to maintain our program or improve our program. The two positions here, Act 44 funding, there's Part B of Act 44, which they could potentially, if those grants were awarded, could fund these positions. And we don't know that at this point. I won't know probably for several months, I believe. So we will go through these and prioritize, and as in the past, most, not all of them will make it through. So again, as I mentioned earlier, current staff, 56 million wages and benefits. 302 professional, coincidentally 302 support, which is full and part-time, 28 administrators. I did not count up all of the coaches and advisors, but just to give you an idea, this total, what each of the classifications cost in terms of budget dollars. The year-to-year increase for our current staff is about 1.8 million for wages and benefits. So,
what are the benefits to coaches? What is are they bonuses, or are they, because they don't qualify for health benefits?
no, well, they could qualify for retirement. If you have a teacher who's also a coach or an advisor, those would be, they are subject to retirement contributions. So moving on to the non-payroll, professional technical services. This is to do with IU services, professional contracted. The increase here, the majority of it is requests for additional intermediate unit services. IU means intermediate unit. That's the BCIU, that could be Chester County Intermediate Unit. We do use services from other counties. Purchased property services. Chromebook lease cost is going down. We're moving away from the leasing model to a capital lease purchase, where we end up purchasing it. Those payments are included in debt and principal and interest payments. Cyber charter, we're being less than conservative here. And I'll just go to this slide. We have a number of students in 12th grade in cyber charter, so we are saying, hedging ourselves, well, maybe we'll reduce our enrollment once they graduate out. But this illustrates that the district has made great efforts at keeping students in our building, especially through our own supported cyber program and the BBA, which is not in our building, but the BBA program, which costs a lot less. So looking at a almost 2 million, a little less than the current year estimate. Supplies, software, fuel. You'll see in the next few slides, budget impact items. There's a lot of curriculum materials in form of licensing that's being requested. We also have a decrease in our electricity costs. We actually bid out for all utilities and fuels, and we are getting a nice increase effective June 1st. So I am reflecting that in here as well. Property, in other words, it's going up. That has to do with technology, equipment, STEM, classroom furniture. And again, I mentioned earlier, dues, interest and principal. The bond payment schedule's changing. The 1994 issue is paid. So that's a net decrease, but also we decreased on the revenue side. And I'll just mention our major improvements. Keeping it the same at this point in time, we are fleshing out the numbers for the requests that have been put in and what will be funded through the general fund, but right now we're keeping it the same as the current year. A means of communication in the budget that we use is called a budget impact item. So if it's new to the budget, the administrators need to complete the request and provide justification. They do that for staffing, they do it for capital improvements, but they also do it for non-payroll items. And this is an extensive list. There are a number of requests here. Science and resource materials, social studies, senior high textbook replacement across a number of subjects. I list all the amounts here. As we go through the review process, we will be evaluating all these and also refining the numbers as the months go on to get the best pricing possible and to get as much free as we can get. Technology. This is part of E-rate funding. We're replacing 8-year-old switches that we need to support our network initiatives of telephone and cameras. But again, this is net of 50% funding through E-rate. Our interactive whiteboard are aging out, and Joe has requested 30 classrooms be replaced. Chromebook, we need to refresh the 5th and the 10th grade. The capital cost on that, $250,000. And again, Joe's numbers may be a little high here. It's very competitive as the years go on with different vendors. But he was also concerned about the tariff and with what's going on in the trading world. And so these numbers will come down, basically what I'm saying. And these figures we would probably lease purchase, so that the impact budget is $125,000, not 400-some thousand on the budget. If we decide to do a capital lease purchase. Additional cameras at the junior high. Special ed has requested smart boards in some classrooms and additional Chromebooks. And the list goes on. So in total, the impact to the budget and what's contributing to that deficit is just around $1 million. And I would like to point out most of these are one-time, although what will come in the following year, 2021. Obviously, the science materials, textbooks, they are truly one-time. If it's a 6-year license, obviously it would be 6 years until we would have to address that again. So getting to the summary of revenue and expenditures. As I mentioned, with no tax increases, a $4.7 million deficit. Just to illustrate an index increase, 3.4 million would be the deficit. Taking all the exceptions, it would be a $2.5 million deficit. What I am still working on is the level of commitments and the net assignments. One of the biggest things of assignments is your future year deficits. So in the next presentation, I'll be providing different scenarios on what those numbers should look like, if they should be any different than what we currently have. And again, this percentage here is unassigned fund balance, like 2 million divided by your expense is 2.5%. Again, any budget that is unassigned fund balance cannot be above 8%. So, bottom line here, the way the preliminary budget looks now, the board could adopt a preliminary budget showing a use of exceptions and staying within the legislated 8%. So this scenario shows the need to apply for exceptions. So budget review will continue. I will update the estimate of this year's revenue and expense, review my assumptions, review commitments and assignments, and review the exception calculations. And I will provide an update to the school board on January 8th. I did provide some detailed handouts, and we have started looking at more detailed function and object in our business function committee meeting, so I will have that as well. Are there any questions?
So Anna, we factored in salaries in agreement with either the food workers or Act 93? Is there some number factored in there? Or?
Well, food workers would be in Fund 50, which is not part of this. This is just general fund, and there is an assumption in for Act 93.
Thank you.
Hey, Ann. For the next presentation, could we get some type of figures about how historically our actual expenses match up to our actual, to our forecasted expenditures for the last couple of years, and then for the same for the revenues, where we projected versus where we came in actually?
Sure.
Thank you.
Hopefully that wasn't too painful.
It's exciting. I take notes all the time about what I can do.
Any other questions for Ann? Thank you, Ann. We'll move on to the agenda to minutes, and we have two sets of minutes for approval this evening, board workshop minutes and voting minutes from November 20th. I move that we approve those sets of minutes. Second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Now we call for nominations for Vice President for 2019. Anybody like to make a nomination for Vice President?
We just assumed that the two,
I think we're making a new vote. One previously failed, so I'd like to go through the process again.
I'd like to nominate Jim Brady for Vice President.
I'd like to nominate Hunter Aarons.
Are there any nominations? So I'd like to move that the nominations be closed.
I move the nomination be closed.
Any discussion before we vote? Okay, we're going to do a hand vote as we have done previously. First nomination is for Mr. Brady. All those in favor of Mr. Brady for Vice President, raise your hand. Okay, thank you. And those in favor of Mr. Aarons for Vice President, raise your hand. Appears to be 5-4 in favor of Mr. Brady. Is that correct? Mr. Brady, congratulations.
Congratulations, Mr. Brady.
We are going to move on to meeting dates. We have a recommendation to the board to set meeting dates for 2019 and move that we approve these meeting dates. Any discussion?
Yeah.
Yes.
Lost my spot.
Did you have a concern? Okay. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? The motion carries. Signature authorization, it's recommended that the board authorize signatures with PNC Bank. I move that we authorize those signatures. There's a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item B, appointment of representatives to alternative, and alternate representatives to the various organizations. I move that we appoint the representatives as they appear in the file attachment to these various organizations. Motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Just to clarify, I don't think there are any changes from 2018 to the 2019 list for the representatives and alternates to these organizations. We're going to move on to committee appointments. I move that the board approve the committee appointments as listed in the file attachment. Second. Motion and a second. Any discussion? And there was a single change, I think. There was a transfer from Mr. Aaronson, Mr. Brady, regarding the committee assignments. Otherwise, all the other assignments could be identical from 2018. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Treasurer's report. Mrs. Page.
I move the treasurer's report for the period ending 11/30/2018. It includes a list of the summary of revenue expenditures, all funds, statements of assets, liabilities, and fund balances, payroll and fringe benefit summary, investment statements, and student activity. This report.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item B.
Item B, I move that we pay our bills for from the general fund of $3,478,418.93.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thanks, Mrs. Baker. We're going to move on to board policies. These have been reviewed and discussed at our workshop meeting. And I'd like to group these together by second reading first and then first reading second. Not to be confusing. And unless there's any objection, I would like to group policies A through F. These are second readings for policies in the agenda. This is A through F. So I move that they be approved. Second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The motion carries. Policies for first reading. These are policies listed in your agenda items G through M. So, any objection to listing G through M in this motion? Seeing none, I'd like to make a motion to approve for first reading items G through M.
Okay.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Say go ahead.
I appreciate the effort that went into addressing 326, and I know we're not there yet, but thank you for working with
Mr. Katz?
Yes.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The motion carries. Business functions, Mr. Dillon.
Thanks, Dr. Hamburger. Item A, assessment appeal of the Walmart property. Resolved that the Board of School Directors of the Exeter Township School District authorize intervention in the assessment of appeal filed to blah, 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 the County Board of Common Pleas by Walmart Real Estate Business Trust. Parcel number listed. Be it further resolved that the board directs its solicitor, Sweet, Stevens, Katz, and Williams, and its administration officers take all action necessary to protect the district's interest in the community.
Sorry. Any discussion? And may I ask, how many times through the years has Walmart appealed this tax?
They appealed back in 2010 and 11. They only received a slight reduction. We did intervene then, and we also had an appraisal done. And based upon, it ended up settling, it was just a couple of $100,000 reduction in assessment. When they went to the hearing in the fall, we attended, they did not have an appraisal. I think they're kind of hanging their hat on the common level ratio that went down. It was 0.723, and now it's down to 0.685 approximately. And the common level ratio is what's used, what's applied to market value in determining assessed value. So bottom line is they're going to have an appraisal of their getting one done. We'll intervene, and we'll just have to see when we appraisal to challenge it.
Thank you. And one question regarding that. You said in the 2010, it changed a couple of $1,000. How much did it cost us to intervene? Was it like, did we lose money on the deal is the question I'm asking.
Well, when you don't intervene, you really risk, then the owner has, the upper hand. You're not defending, or getting a good appraisal that's fair. Am I answering the question?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just, did you also say that they didn't even get an appraisal?
Currently, back in 2010 and 11.
Okay.
But for the appeal in August of 2018, we sat in front of the assessment board. They filed an appeal. They did not have an appraisal. The assessment board issued their final notice saying, no, you're not getting it. There's no change. So now they're appealing.
So are you saying that if, because there's a reduction in the common level ratio, that they just presumed that they would pay a lower tax? Based on?
That was the comment that their representative made there. So I think they weren't prepared. They didn't have an appraisal.
So they're taking a shot at it because they figure with a lower ratio that the tax might just be lower without them doing an assessment.
But they need an appraisal.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
So-
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
So what do they base themselves to get a lower cost? Is it that their property is devalued for some reason, or it's old, or that they're not making enough money there, or how do they go about deciding that it should be lower?
Well, the appraisal, their appraisal, and we have to have an appraisal, will look at comparables, what's happening in other retail centers. I think we all are aware that retail centers have suffered due to in large part online shopping. I'm not sure Walmart has or hasn't, so the appraisals will reveal that because they'll look at the sales approach, income, they'll look at different comparables.
I was just wondering, I didn't know about, appraising what properties. So they do look at sales and.
I'll look at recent sales of similar retail centers.
Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Mr. Gill.
Assessment appeal resolved that the Board of School Directors of Exeter Township School District authorizes intervention to the assessment appeal filed to number listed in the Berks County Court of Common Pleas by MB Investments, parcel listed. And it be further resolved that the Board of Directors directs it's illicit. Schools need Katz and Williams, and its administration and officers take all action necessary to protect the district's interests in the youth.
Is that a second? Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. We could, it's up to the,
Oh,
up to the
I
chair.
forgot. Good memory. Okay, I move that we, under consent agenda, approve C, D, E, F, and G.
Second. We have a motion and a second to combine C, D, E, F, and G. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Mr. Trapino, Personnel Committee.
Okay, thanks for that reminder. We will look at doing a couple of things I think about here. Consent will do A, B, call out C, F, E, so why don't we just go, we'll skip, so we'll do A, C, then I gotta pull out something on E, so A, C, and F.
Although there are no guest teachers.
So you're good with that, Pat?
No guest teachers.
Okay, all right. So you wanna figure this out for me?
Yes, it looks like we have AC and F.
No, we have to call out course requests because Hunter has a conflict.
Oh,
C in there.
You want to be in there?
Zero.
No, there's a dissertation request for course reimbursement.
I think you have A through D.
Just A and D then?
No, A through D. A through D.
A through D.
So I move that the board approve all actions of the personnel committee A through D.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
I don't have my laptop here, so it's recommended the board of directors approves the attached list of course requests, pulling out the one for, this is Hannah.
Second. Motion and a second. To approve all the course.
Hey, you just abstain, yeah, you just do an extension on the commercial
Yeah,
side.
so we don't have to pull it out.
Okay, so we'll pull it out. All right. So, we have a motion and a second to approve the course requests as listed under item D. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions?
I abstain due to a previously stated conflict of interest.
One abstention. Thank you. Motion carries.
It is recommended the board of school directors approves the staff conferences as well.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Trapino. Student functions, Mrs. Stratton.
It is reported the balloon field trips that have occurred within a 60-mile radius have been approved. And I'm going to group items B through F and H through I for approval from the board. I omitted G,
You're omitting F and G?
only G.
Only G. Second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The motion carries.
And I recommend that the board of school directors approves item G.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions?
I am for the abstain.
One abstention. Okay, thank you. Ad hoc, Transportation Committee, two items on the agenda. I will, if there's an objection, combine A and B and request the board approve those two items for approval. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
However, just to be clear, so what we're looking to do by taking these actions is in effect to do a side-by-side analysis at some point in the future as to option one, which is the renovation within constraints of the existing property versus the potential to outsource busing. Is that?
I think that's a fair,
Are you saying by getting the Great Valley consultants?
Yeah, I'm saying that Great Valley is going to be assessing the current bus property from the perspective of what has been proposed, just to analyze whether or not it fits within zoning parameters and all those kinds of.
it'll help us to determine whether there are any additional costs beyond what was already estimated by, our architect. And then the other was a contract with Pasco for services to assist the district in submitting an RFP for potential contracts.
So there's no decision being made here other than really just furthering the work of the applicant to now begin to do some financial due diligence around the two components of this project.
Yeah, I would say these were missing pieces that we really feel we need to have before we can come in and conclusions as a committee.
I just have a quick question. Regarding the Great Valley Consultants proposal, do we run into any issues, because Great Valley Consultants is the township engineer, are they doing it on behalf of the township, or are they doing it individually for us as a customer? I don't know if all those can be answered in this question.
They're doing it on behalf of the township does not pay for engineering services, the customer who's coming in, which is the school district, has to pay for any services by engineering.
Okay, but they are doing it on behalf of the township, is what you're saying?
Yes, that is the job.
Wait, okay, maybe I'm confused now. They are making an assessment of our project on behalf of the township to tell us if the township is going to approve something.
No, they're making an assessment of the proposed layout to see what variances, if any, would be required in order to go forward with the project as sketch plans.
So this
It's not a
doesn't
formal
sound like,
sketch plan.
but that doesn't sound like they're doing it on behalf of the township.
They are, because they work for the township, they don't work for the school district. They were authorized by the township to be able to look at these things. The school district is responsible for all engineering reviews, just like any other developer who comes into the township must pay.
So are you expressing concern about a conflict of interest?
I don't know if it's a conflict of interest,
Or
but there seems.
They're not working for us.
Yes.
They're not working for us.
No, we're just looking at this, what I think what he's saying is.
Yeah, we have to.
Yeah, we're just looking
That's how it works.
But we're paying for the service, so I mean, as a board, we have to approve any expenses that we
Yeah.
have associated with this.
But on the same token, if they give us the plans and we say,
They're not developing anything. They're reviewing plans that we provided to them from our architect to go forward and tell us, based on what they're seeing in the plans that our architect has developed, what meets or does not meet the zoning ordinances, the saldo of the township.
no, I don't think that's
their
correct,
job.
because
No, that's
while I was
correct.
on the
It
planning
is
commission,
correct.
that's what the engineers did for us after plans had been submitted.
This is what was agreed upon during our meeting with the township when we met in their office, and Joe from their group came in from Great Valley. He sat in the meeting and he got authorization from the township that he could go and look at our plans, and then he came to us and gave us what the bill would be if we want to go forward.
So what I think maybe what we're saying is this really isn't a binding action, it's really just proposal. It's a taking it as, if we roll the tape back to several years ago, part of the issues that we ran into was this was like an element of due diligence that we maybe didn't do previously, and thus we ran into the zoning issues because we might not have done that work up front. So what he's really doing is giving a quick eyeball to what's been created to say, DEP issue here, some ordinance that we don't know about, but they do because that's their area of expertise. Just kind of pointing out potential things that take a project from a $500,000 fix to a $2.4 million.
In general, I guess that's a good way to summarize it, or to say, since we're going to keep our limited disturbance down to a certain amount of square footage, if we do that, we will be able to not have to be underneath the purview of the state or the conservation district. It will be just a modification to site. So we're trying to find out what can we do on site that will cause us the least amount of cost from an impact side. Do we need to put a basin? Can we avoid putting a basin? All those type of things. Can we avoid putting in fencing? Can we maintain the existing driveway parking lot situation because it's grandfathered in as existing use? That's what their job is.
Are there any other questions, Mr. Ernst?
I guess I'm just concerned because he's gonna do all of that again if we submit plans for this to go before the township. So I guess I'm confused why we're paying this money, because even if it wouldn't get approved on first consideration before either the planning commission or zoning hearing board, if we have to get variances and whatnot, it's just gonna be continued. So I
think one of the things that was, just, from my perspective, and looking at it not necessarily from a procedural, way, but maybe looking at it from a more pragmatic way, is that before we move forward, as Mr. Trevino had mentioned, we really need to get a better understanding of what our total cost potential may be, help us evaluate some of the potential options that we go forward with. So whether this is typically in line with what we think of in the planning process as the right step at the right time, for us, there's a level of interest in spending a little bit of money here with the idea that we have a sort of a guarantee in regards to what we would be facing if we were to develop a project.
So spend less than $1,500 to avoid, just to throw a number out there, $100,000 in something else.
Well, I think it's also provide us with guidance. It's all about guidance. Or else we go into the dark, as Mike said, where we don't really know anything, we make all these assumptions. In reality, maybe 3 years or 4 years ago, we would have heard this and we said, we could have just done this, this, this.
When we make a decision to go forward, spend a significant amount of money and find out after the fact that there were significant improvements that were required via code or other compliance.
Did Ellis review this at all?
What does he have to review? It's a fee.
I'm not concerned.
This doesn't make sense.
It makes perfect sense,
No,
because
it
he's gonna do this twice. Jim, I appreciate that you're an engineer, I appreciate that you're an engineer. I'm concerned that this is gonna be done twice, and we're paying for them to do something that they're already gonna do after we submit this, and they're not gonna represent us in front of the township.
They should.
They can't. They're the township engineer, and if we submit these plans, they're going to represent us with this plan that they've approved?
No, they're never going to represent us.
Okay,
They are always
so that's why I'm concerned.
We are
So
not
I
paying
just
for
asked
an
a
overall
question.
review.
Did Alice review this?
If we were paying for an overall review, the fee could be substantially higher. We are not providing them engineering drawings. We are providing them a plan that shows a sketch that says, what is the impact anticipated from this? When we go forward with complete architectural engineering drawings, there will be a much more extensive review of this, which could have a much more substantial fee than $1,500. And that is what we'll have to bear at that time when we go forward in that direction. Right now, we are getting a courtesy look, which you have to pay engineers for their time. And frankly, $1,500 is not a lot of hours.
I call for the question.
Do we need to separate this, do we need to separate these two items? Okay, let's separate these two items then. I'm going to withdraw my prior motion to combine the two and separate them as individual motions. So the first will be the Great Valley Consultants proposal. It's recommended that the board approve with Great Valley Consultants for a cost no more than $1,500. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Can I abstain?
We have, I'm sorry, sure, the extension.
I'd like to abstain.
So we have one abstention.
Excuse me,
Do you need
on what
a
basis
purpose?
do you abstain?
I think a lack of information and a lack of comfort for me. You know, I'd love to have more information provided. I'm just concerned about supporting this because my understanding of how this process works, I just have some concerns.
I don't have any problem with your abstention.
I thought we discussed this at the workshop meeting. I mean, what else do you need to know?
It was my mistake not to raise these questions at the workshop meeting, so I apologize for that, but I'm not going to change it.
Not a problem. Not a problem. Let's move on to item B, and this is a, excuse me, is there any additional comment? Okay. Then move on to item B, and this is a proposal for a contract for consulting services with PASBO at a rate of $125 an hour, not to exceed $5,000 plus expenses. I move that we approve this action. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
So David, this,
So what exactly is PASBO going to do for us?
Well, it's laid out in the document that was part of your attachment, but essentially, they'll assist the district in the development of an RFP that we'll be able to send out. They'll also then be able to assist the district in analyzing the results that come back, from those RFPs, the actual proposals from many contractors, and help us decide whether or not these are legitimate and appropriate for us to pursue.
so will there be a second action after the RFP has been generated to issue the RFP? Or are we, by virtue of this vote here, we are issuing an RFP?
I think, my understanding is that we're doing just that, we're authorizing him to work with us on our behalf to help assist us in the generation of RFP. Again, RFPs are non-binding, they're an opportunity for, a potential contractor to provide a proposal that we can ultimately accept or deny. But the other thing that we're gonna receive as a board is a recommendation, an up or down recommendation from the committee, and that'll be a vote. I think that the committee will have to, to consider if we were to move forward with, let's say, a particular proposal for a contract.
So is the deliverable back to the board? Will the board have an opportunity to review the RFP? Because the RFP itself, depending upon how it's constructed, results in the quality of the proposal itself. So I'm just wondering if there's an opportunity for the board to review the RFP before it is issued.
Well, I know that the committee is going to be reviewing the RFP, and the committee is an open meeting, so the entire board can attend if interested.
Okay, so will there be notification to the board when the review for the RFP is? But I know we say of course, but sometimes it's not widely communicated. So I appreciate that.
Well, we make public announcements, we don't typically say what's going to be on the agenda.
But this one you might want to say.
In this case, we may want to at least alert the board to what may be in the discussion of the RFP.
I mean, I'm sure that PASBO has lots of experience. I mean, my guess is they're going to probably, pull something off the shelf because at $5,000, it's about 40 hours worth of work. When you look at the extent of the work they're going to do, my guess is they're going to be repurposing fairly standard RFP. And if you start to, and this is fresh in my mind because I'm going through a number of RFPs of work, but I think we need to be very clear as to what our expectations are and what we're looking for deliverable from the RFP. So I would just think that I think the board should feel more comfortable if they had the ability to review it. That transportation committee would be great.
Yeah, and I think Dr. McCullough will be really helpful to help us understand how the RFP process works, and help us analyze and evaluate the RFP and guide the district through any decision making that we ultimately are trying to make.
Mike, we had Dr. McCullough in to talk. I don't think you were at that meeting.
No, but I think sometimes when people look at RFPs, the only thing they look at are numbers. And I think that there has to be sort of a more holistic look at the financial components. Because any of the research that you do on outsourcing, the benefit for outsourcing sort of ebbs away pretty quickly. And so I think that when we look at RFP as a group, we may want to look a little bit wider than just the cost of the service. You can simply Google studies out there and see that, that there's more that we should consider than just cost. Cost is not unimportant, I get it, I just watched our, budget presentation here, but for those people who have children in the school district, you might analyze this in a different perspective than somebody who's purely just looking at budget. If I had a problem like we did in February with the buses, I could knock on this guy's door and he's got to answer questions. Now I knock on his door and he's got to call somebody in East Twp who then has to get back to him and tell him what happened. So you lose a little bit of that authority and a little bit of that management ability. So I'm just saying we should be more holistic in our understanding of what the impact is. And I'm sure the RFP will call that into question as well.
Mike, it's not going to begin or end with Dr. McCullough. He's going to take input from us as to what we expect. I mean, that's one of the things that he told us, is that it's got to be at your direction.
No, so, yeah, that's great. I don't want to belabor the point. I appreciate the work that the committee's done, and I'll be happy to participate in that transportation.
You know, meeting notes are done, knows when she sends out the notices, she will spend a specific notice for this meeting to the board members.
Cool. Thank you. Any further discussion?
Yes, I just think if we're doing an RFP and we're looking at the possibility of contracting out, I think we should have give notice to the community, to let them weigh in on what they think about the bus transportation and whether it should be outsourced or not. As I said, I think with the snowstorm that they had, the 6 inches or whatever, and kids were on the bus, and the bus drivers had everything calm for hours, and the great job that they did. We know that these bus drivers really, really care about the students that they transport. So I don't think, I mean, I don't know where this is going, but I don't like where I think where it's going. And I think the community needs to weigh in on whether or not they support outsourcing or if they support keeping it in-house. That's my opinion.
Well, that's exactly what the committee's going to do.
Pardon me?
That's exactly what the committee's going to do. The committee's going to make a decision. The committee's going to try to look at those.
I said community. I didn't
Oh, the
say,
community.
I
Oh, I
didn't
thought
say
you said
committee.
Oh.
No, I think the community should be aware of what we are talking about
Well,
here.
the community is invited to all of our meetings.
Well,
These are all open public
but
meetings.
you know, I think it should be told. A lot of, I was on the board. I was in this district for 40 years. Guess how many times I read what was going on in the district? Nothing, no time.
It's hard to keep track of it.
It's I had my own life, and that was it. And I thought the school district was running their job and really doing the right thing. The last time I went was when they were talking about getting us a charter school here in Exeter, and that's when I went to the board meeting. But otherwise, you don't know what's going on. I think the community wants the bus drivers because they know those bus drivers care about those kids.
Well, I think it's important that if anybody's going to develop an opinion on it, they need to understand all the factors and all the variables.
Well,
So they're going through
I
the
think
decision. So,
we should,
so
should
that's,
advertise it, and, because I was here the last time they tried to get the outsourcing, and I'll tell you what, those people were very, very adamant about keeping the bus right in this district.
sure. And if you've heard from our drivers, that's the message that they've been trying to communicate to us is, their preference for the district to not consider an outside contractor. So obviously we take that into consideration. How much of that factors in? It appears to be financially feasible and more practical and tremendous savings for the district to be able to contract. Then shouldn't that in some manner offset the decision to some degree? I mean, just because drivers want to continue with the district, should that be a factor that then overrides everything else.
I think
And I think that's important to really kind of.
wants those bus drivers. The community, not the community.
I don't-
It doesn't mean
I don't
that
have
they
got that
won't get it.
information really, but,
I'm sorry.
It doesn't mean they won't get it.
Well, it sounds like that's what we're not getting going for.
I mean, just having sat through this for several years now, I do appreciate the effort that's gone into this. The meetings have been public. People don't have a tendency to get involved as their elected representatives. That's sort of our job, to try to represent the positions of the community. I do think that the process that we're going through, the ability to do side-by-side comparisons is appropriate, and I think that, let's not throw out the baby with the bathwater. There's been a lot of work done on this, and we'll have lots of discussion before any decisions are made, and we'll actually have somebody, we'll have some analysis and some fact to work from. It's a post-fact world, I get it, but at least we're trying to work with the facts that are available to us to make a reasonable decision. And I would hope that everybody who has an interest, vested or otherwise, would use the opportunities that we provide on a monthly basis to come and share their opinions, because it is important. But I do appreciate the work that's been done. And Pat, I totally understand your position, and I think it's as a valid position as anybody else's.
any further discussion? Okay, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
No.
Good, one opposed. Motion carries. Athletic Committee, Mr. Aaron's.
We have a meeting tomorrow night in the senior high school conference room. For those of you who don't know where that is, if you go in the main entrance of the senior high school, it's in the lobby to your right. I'll go through the agenda quick so everybody can kind of get an idea. We'll be recapping briefly the athletic season for the fall. We'll have a discussion over the athletic committee description that I proposed for review, the Booster Club oversight by the board and related policies. We'll talk about cash flow and cash management during athletic events. We'll review the rules and regulations for Don Thomas Stadium and the perimeter. And we will have an open discussion about the potential of adding a second turf field to the school district's campus.
And what time is the meeting?
7?
Yeah, didn't I say 7:30?
7:30 tomorrow night.
Oh, I'm sorry, 7:30.
Oh,
Yes.
so far.
If you need any of the more details, they'll be in the email that I sent you guys last week. I think there are some attachments there as well that you can look at.
Thanks, Mr. Aaron's. Curriculum Program, Curriculum Committee, Mrs. Howard.
All right, anyway, it's quick. It's recommended that the Board of School Directors approves the purchase of the textbook, the language and composition, as stated below for the 2019-2020 school year.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Facilities Committee.
I do not have a report this evening.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Brady. Personnel Committee, Mr. Javino.
I do not have a report.
Policy Committee, no report, other than to say that we continue to forge ahead. Student Functions Committee, Ms. Scott.
This kind of falls up in student functions and the parent forum kind of all together, but Dr. Winters has worked with some parents to create the Over the Fence Committee, and they're going to be meeting for the second time, I believe, but more officially, official first meeting this Thursday, and he knows way more about this than I do.
Dr. Phillips and I had the opportunity, it was back close to the beginning of the school year, to sit down with two community members, Dr. Janet Craig and Melissa Crotty, who had mentioned the existence of this committee. It existed several years back when Don Kramer was here, and kind of the idea of bringing it back as an additional conduit to increase communication with the community on things that are going on in the district. And we have our first scheduled meeting this Thursday from 8:30 to 10 in the morning. There are about 15 community members that have expressed an interest in wanting to be a part of the committee. And at the agenda on Thursday morning, we're going to talk about the structure and function of the committee. We're going to share the draft of our calendar for next year in terms of where it is at this point. Ann's going to come in and talk very briefly about budget, and then the community has a couple of items that they want to discuss as well, in terms of Friday early dismissals and some stuff related to home mat. So we're very excited about it. We think it's going to be an opportunity for Dr. Phillips and I when there's, an initiative in the district that we want to generate some positive publicity behind, that we can use that committee as kind of a conduit to get some of that information out and link stuff that's on our website to some of the other social media outlets that our community is looking at, the Facebook page that exists for the junior high and the senior high, the Exeter Informant, some of those kinds of things. So, we're excited about working there.
So Michelle, as the chair of that committee, would you, and of this group, would you be then socializing some of that information back to the board that might have occurred when you got from Dr. Winters back through you? I mean, I think it would be good for the full board to get a sense of what the discussion might be.
Yeah, I would be happy to. Again, I think Dr. Winters is going to know more than I. The meeting is during the day, and I work during the day, so I'm not able to go on Thursday. So I'm hoping in the future that I'll be able to go. But this was the day and time that worked best for the majority of the members, and I loved that.
What we did when we communicated with them is I allowed the community members to determine when they wanted to meet. Dr. Phillips and I looked at our calendar and gave some different, times in terms of first thing in the morning, at the end of the, work day, that type of thing. And for the first meeting, the largest percentage of community members this Thursday at 8:30 a.m. was the best time for the majority of the folks, in terms of what also matched with Dr. Phillips and my calendar. But, moving forward, we'll certainly look and be open to exploring other times as well. The goal is to get as many of those folks that want to be there out. But we'll be taking minutes like we do at other committee meetings, and we'll make sure those minutes are accessible. Michelle can't be there Thursday, but we've already emailed one another, and we'll share the minutes, and she'll be able to share those at the January meeting.
But the chair needs to be there at some point. So these meetings got to get open to her.
Yes. Yes.
You can't lose your town.
I don't need a lot to do it. Yeah. They did do a very fair process. The way that they handled it was, I thought, very fair to everyone. I just love that.
Well, I think it's a great idea. I think that the informal communication network, I think it's marvelous, and I applaud your efforts for doing it. Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Tech Committee. Mrs. Fisher. No report. Thank you. Exeter Community Education Foundation, Mrs. Ryan.
Yes, I have a report tonight. ECEF and the Alumni Association's Eagle Statue named Brick Fundraising Project is 4 weeks in and already proving to be engaging our community. One of the 2 benches has been purchased, as well as dozens of bricks. Deadline for orders is March 1st. And if you had to notice, they're online, of course, but also in your township or school district newsletter. Thank you for that. Right now is a busy time for ECEF and our annual fund when donors make their year-end donations. During this time, we're also focusing on growing our board members through our nominations committee, budgeting for 2019, and helping the district cultivate community partnerships. 2 weeks ago, ECEF hosted a lunch with Dr. Winters, Mrs. Belinsky, and Mr. Mark Shalat of R.M. Palmer to develop a relationship for future endeavors. Looking forward to their support and involvement with Exeter in the future.
Thanks, Ms. Hyman. Berkshire Career and Tech Center, Dr. McClellan.
Yes, I have a report. We met last week, we met earlier in December because of a reorganization. I had mentioned at the last meeting that the assistant principal, West, was moved into the principal position. They had a vacancy, so that was filled. They hired an assistant principal. Let's see, they gave an update on the house project and talked about all the authentic learning that is taking place, by having the students build that house. And if you are able to make it to their celebration in April, they're going to be giving tours. The house is going to be giving tours of that. There were 100 students that were inducted into national Technical Society. And they get in there by having like high grades and good attendance, since a lot of those programs require a number of hours. East Campus students in cosmetology raised money for cancer research. They did a cut-a-thon. And that was back in December 4th, and WFMZ did a little report on that, and it's online if you want to see that.
I see Joe Schlaffer went to that.
Listen, I was in it for 20 hours, I was in it for 20 hours.
Yeah, I think I mentioned that 11 hours they did that. We had 2 extra students that were students of the quarter, Brandon Moser, service occupation, and Sarah Chevis, early childhood. They talked about it, they applied for and received a number of grants and matching grants. One of them in particular, if we're home by 11 tonight. On PBS Channel 39, they, on Monday, yesterday, interviewed teachers and students in health occupations and welding program. And their purpose was to talk about how they had applied for a competitive equipment grant, and they were awarded $27,000. And so that, they're talking about that on PBS. And if you miss it at 11 because we're still here, it's going to be on the PBS website as tomorrow. Well, it's channel 39, so whatever channel you get on, it's PBS 39, but whatever. Huh? Well, it depends on what base system you have.
You can get, I think it depends on your cable.
Yeah, but it's the PBS 39, whatever channel it is.
39
They saved the date of April 30th for the countywide school board convention. It's going to be held at RAC this year. It's starting at between 5 and 6. They're going to give tours. And then they have dinner and everything there.
Do they know who the speaker is yet? Who's the speaker?
Yeah. They're going to talk about testing and
They didn't say. Did they not? You don't think
We just heard about it Friday.
So last time, Hunter bought a ticket at raffle.
Did you win the bet? Did you win the bet?
We'll find out.
Well, no, that's going to be when they have their celebration in April. But anyway, so if you see Hunter pulling up in a 1937 Chevy Street Rod. Right, and if you see me pulling up in this beautiful Corvette, 1977 Corvette, don't get jealous of us. You have a chance to.
I'm going to sell it to pay for loans.
So, I think that was it. Did you have anything else? I know you get it.
Yeah, no, that was as much as what we were doing on Friday.
Okay.
There'll be more updates to come.
Okay, all right.
Can I just say one thing? I really appreciate your reports. We never really heard much in previous years about what goes on at PCTC, and I find these to be so informative and interesting. So thank you for being so enthusiastic about sharing it.
Thank you.
Well, you gotta see her notes.
Pass through the,
This is from legislative.
what we heard so much about in the past were how good the meals were.
Oh, right.
That's about it.
Oh.
Okay, going to move on to Berks County Intermediate Unit Board of Directors. There was a meeting on November 29th. They appointed a new CFO. I don't know if you guys know Carl Blessing, but he's retiring after 35 years of service with the IU. He'll continue on until I think maybe April or May. But this new fellow comes in from as a experience as a business manager with the Elizabethtown Area School District. Also, there were some calendars that were approved, which is typical business for them, and no meeting is planned for December. The board's officers will make decisions in December. when December voting comes along. So that's all for the BCIU report. Legislative liaison, Mr. Gallo.
December's quiet in Harrisburg and DC. People are licking their wounds, but in January it'll pick up pretty heavily with budget season and look for education to focus it's going to be quite the focus of the next budget.
Because I went to legislative meeting, so.
The cold meeting.
Huh?
Cold.
Yeah, the cold meeting, right. So can I talk about that? Because I thought that was very, very informative. So I learned a lot there. Let me see. Okay. So.
They have a presenter at the meeting, right?
They did have a presenter, it was, and Ann and I attended that. So they gave an update on how the House and Senate state had changed as far as the Republicans and Democrats. But the significant legislative items on the table for 2019 are the educational funding increases, the property tax reform, school safety and security funding, Plan Con, charter school reform and Act 82 reform. And then they went into explain and talk about, that. And I had mentioned before that I'm on the coalition, the Pennsylvania Schools Works. So they talked about that too, about how important it is to contact your legislators and talk and to encourage them to increase the funding. You heard Ann's report, the budget report, where we, even with the increase, we still have a deficit. And so the states has not been giving the funding. They increased funding last year, but it's not enough. So we really do have to contact the legislators, and if you don't get them, then talk to their staff members. They gave a statistic of it said 80% of legislators monitor their Twitter. So that could be a way to also, let them know what our needs are, what we feel. Another interesting thing that they said was that Pennsylvania spends more than 40 other states their per pupil spending. And they said, some of that has to do with the pension contributions. So I found that thank you for letting me go for you, because I found it to be very interesting.
We can both go in the future.
Yeah.
I just had to sneak in.
Okay, that's great. Oh, good, because this was the first time I was able to attend because the meetings are on a weekday at 7:30 in the morning. Okay.
7 o'clock in the morning.
Oh, 7, okay, 7, yeah.
We're half an hour late.
No, I was there. I've been right time, right ahead of time. Okay, so I just wanted to add that it's important as school board members that we advocate for funding. And there's that whole big statewide initiative, to do that, so.
When is the next school meeting?
The next meeting is February 28th, and it's at the BCIU at 7. And any board members. 7, they said.
Yeah, and you do need to register, but, board members can go. But, you and Jerry and I are on the list, but anybody wants to go, can certainly go.
Yeah.
But they need to let them know in advance so they can prepare for that. Usually they give you a place card and
Right,
prepare
you have an idea.
breakfast for you.
Yeah, they do. But it's just really, really interesting to learn about what's happening.
Thank you. Township Borough Liaison, Mr. Dupree.
I have no report. I don't necessarily have discussion this week.
Okay.
I just have a question. I'm happy to be the alternate to the township. If you can't go, Mike, do you mind telling?
Yeah, there hasn't been a meeting other than a couple of weeks ago just to do the setup for the transportation committee. So, but yeah, we haven't met in the last couple of weeks. There hasn't been any items. So the best way that it works for the township is for us to assemble a list of issues that we have that we want to raise with them, and then therefore we have something to talk about. And we should have an agenda. So I would encourage the board, if you have issues, and I know I've talked to them about police issues, I've talked to them about the bus facility, facilitate that meeting, get that started. There will be other issues coming if they acquire the property on Perkins Avenue. So maybe I can ask the rest of the board, if you have township concerns, if you could send me an email with them, and then Pat and I can set up a meeting.
Well, I do have it in there, my godchild is on the, in front of the new development.
Oh.
That's so influence one.
Give us a Vinny?
Vinny, yeah.
Vinny. He's a good electrician too.
Thanks, Mr. Jabina. Superintendent's report, Dr. Phillips.
Thank you, Dr. Hamburger. We're in the process of completing our last week of school before the holidays. Buildings are conducting holiday events such as concerts, sing-alongs, holiday crafting. Obviously, there is a buzz in the building, but the students are still working hard. Based on the weather reports for the remainder of this week, we will have made it to the break without using any snow days. We do know snow will be coming, 60 degrees on Friday, we're good. We know snow will be coming though, and per our calendar, our first snow makeup days will be April 17th, 18th, and the 22nd. It is important to note though, to plan accordingly. If we have to use those days, they are makeup days around the Easter break. December 21st is a scheduled half day for students with the teacher in service the second half of the day, and we return to school for students on January 2nd. Rifton reported math students participated in the Noetic Learning Math Competition. Of the 15 fifth graders that participated, Sean Rathman was the team winner, and 10 others received honorable mention for scoring in the top 50% of all participants. Of the 18 sixth graders that participated, Luke Zawilla took top honors, and 11 students received honorable mention. Sean and Luke each received 2 medals, one as team winner and another for placing on the National Honor Roll for scoring in the top 10% of all participants nationwide. As mentioned, we'll be holding our first Over the Fence committee meeting this Thursday. Community stakeholders will meet to hear about the function of the group. They will hear a budget presentation and hear about a proposed 2019-20 school calendar. The board will be receiving their copy of the calendar tomorrow for review. Obviously, nothing is in stone. The calendar has been shared with administration, cabinet level, teachers union, support union. To this point, all have looked on it favorably. It will go down to the board, but we will be sharing with community members. We have heard their concerns about the amount of early release days. We made some changes to that. We also cleaned up the calendar. There are no longer 30 different colors on the calendar, so it's a little easier to manage. So the purpose, though, as stated, is to receive input, but also get our message out to the community who will spread the word. Our staff continues to utilize our STAR assessments to inform instruction. Data-informed decisions and differentiation in the classroom is meeting students at their level. I was honored to be invited to the Capitol building in Harrisburg by Senator Judy Schwank to be present for the signing of Bill 1098 by Governor Wolf. This bill increases penalties for drivers that pass school buses with the stop arm extended and red lights flashing. It also allows for the installation of cameras on the stop arm to provide video evidence to aid in the prosecution of drivers who pass buses. I would like to suggest and recommend to the board that we consider as a school board taking the lead in providing safety for our students and beginning to attach cameras to our buses. That is my report for tonight. It's Act 10? Oh, sorry, Act 1098. It was proposed by Senator Brown from Lehigh County, and Senator Schwank was also on it. I had the pleasure to be there and meet the little girl from Lehigh County whose mom was the driving force behind it. She had pulled her daughter twice out of the way of a car driving by the buses up in Lehigh County, and I had the ability to share with Governor Wolf a picture of Alexa, our student at Lorraine, that was almost tragically injured fatally at our situation, and he expressed his concern as well, and thankfully signed the bill, and now we can look forward to hopefully being a deterrent. And as I said, certainly not something we should do for every bus, but we do know there are certain routes on our runs that are habitually passed. Suggesting we put them on there. They're already retrofitted. The cameras will go right into the stop arms. They're only $500 a piece. Thank you. That's my report.
What's the process? What's the lead time? You go through the school?
Well, at this point, we're looking for the board's approval to provide some more information from you. We certainly can do that. I know the cost right now is $500. My understanding is that they're retrofit, so it should not be too hard to get them installed, but we can certainly.
Yeah, we can have some information that you involved.
Absolutely.
Make some action move forward.
And I did take the opportunity to let Senator Schwank, this is something that I'd be bringing to the board. She would be excited to come to the board if we were to approve that, and I would also have Alexa and her mom come to be part of the celebration of doing something like this.
It's a very, I know it's very serious. Now, one of the bus drivers had shared about how many times that people pass cars and pass buses all the time. And I forget where that was, but the family where the 3 children, the twin boys and a little bit older sister were killed by someone with an SUV coming around the bus, and I think a 4th child too. It wasn't here, but you know that you're hearing about a lot of this. I'm glad that they're doing it because it is really serious.
I know the police have been very diligent in trying to find the car that passed our bus and injured Alexia. They have gone to the point of a national search of VIN numbers that match the make and model of the car, and they still haven't been able to find it. The cameras would allow a picture of the driver as the driver would go by, as well as a full shot of the license plate as it passed. But I think the deterrent piece would be promoting it and letting everyone in our community know that we do have cameras on our buses, and that you will be caught and prosecuted.
And then the fine needs to be higher too, because
They have raised all that in the bill.
Yeah, right.
At this point, it was left up to the driver who's driving kids
Yeah.
to somehow write down what the license number was and make that report to the police, and very little after that would happen. This will be much more stringent.
Thanks for that report, Dr. Phillips. I just want to announce that we had an executive session prior to the board meeting to address legal matters, as well as some Act 44 school safety and security matters. We will also be convening an executive session following this board meeting to continue conversations on Act 44, school safety and security. Also want to remind board members we'll be having our picture immediately after this meeting here in this room, so please don't come too far away. And I will accept the motion for adjournment.
Can I just say one more thing? So Alex, I appreciate that you sat through this whole meeting. I don't know why you did. I appreciate that you did.
I was just interested, and
Okay.
I'll let you finish.
No,
Okay.
because I think you got a sense of watching this meeting. It's sort of how we feel when we watch golf.
I disagree with that.
Let's get through your work, stay here all night.
But go ahead and explain your
That kid carries golf clubs, Mike.
I actually had a question. I was going to ask a question up there. Okay.
You're being memorialized on.
We need your name, your address, just your own. You got cheated. Did you notice that?
I never really spoken to something like this. I don't really know how to express my opinions on it. I don't know really how it works, but I think that I'm really here to ask about the Reading Country Club and talk about the Reading Country Club going forward. Whatever happens to it, and I want people to understand that maybe if you don't play golf or if you don't understand the historical value that a place like that has and the way that it impacts our community and the people in our community. I don't really think that, and if there's anything like it, I don't think you're going to find anything like it anywhere. And I really think that there's no one in the township that spent more time there in the past 5-6 years than me, and I've never seen. It might not make all the money in the world, but I feel like that the people and everyone's heart is in it, and I feel like that you give it time and you give it the right management. And I love Derek Sandretter, who just is the best, and I think he's going to get the world for the golf course. But I just really feel like it's too valuable to give up, and I feel like that everyone overlooks it because they might not understand it, and the people that are involved in it and the people that spent the last 20 years there. and that they want something better for a place that they know could succeed so well if it was just carried on. And I'm in no place to, I don't know the numbers or what the budget is or even what it costs, but I do know that the board or whoever paid a lot for the golf course, and it's not really, I just want to say that I really don't think it's anybody's fault that it's not being successful. I don't think the golf courses were meant to make so much money, and I don't think they were meant to make so much money that everyone could profit off of it. I feel like it's such, and I'm speaking more passionately, from a passionate standpoint of just, I wanted to stay because I know how much it means to so many people, and to me specifically. I mean, without Reading Country Club, I would not have those things that Mr. Hadley kindly explained to us would never even happen. I would not be who I was today. I would not have done the things as an Exeter student, as an Exeter athlete that I would if it wasn't for a place like that. So I feel like that if we continue to move forward with it and give it more chances and give it the right, I won't say funding, but give it the right attention and the right care that it needs, that it can be so successful. People love that place.
I think, I really understand your passion. Unfortunately, I think you're talking the wrong group. You really need to go to the township and express it.
No,
But
yeah.
I will say, first off, that I think it is a great resource. I think anytime you can preserve open space in a way that becomes a public recreational or a public, asset, I look at Springfield Township and say, if they can have one, why can't Berks County have one and be right here at Exeter Township? I mean, you can have successful public courses, and success really doesn't need to mean you're generating a lot of positive income, because you're really offsetting negative income, because we would have really been impacted negatively if the golf course had been purchased as it was originally intended to go under a developer. And at that point, we would have watched the whole community have a different kind of look. So I think it's very appreciated, your position on that. I also, as I said, I would bring it forward to the township, and let them know what, bring it forth for yourself and others that use the course, and let them know right out. This is what we have. Once you lose it, you don't get it back.
Yeah, personally, I understand that there's not many people that play golf and it can be used for others, but there's nothing else that's going to make money there. I've seen fundraisers and car shows and everything under it, and I believe that it's just so valuable that people don't understand that. And I feel like it could be almost like our township's thing. Like it could be Exeter Township's thing is that we have the Reading Country Club, and I feel like it's underappreciated so much.
Well, a number of years ago, a couple of years ago, they used to have the restaurant open, and we'd go down there, a number of times. They used to have like Italian night and seafood night, and then on a Sunday they had a great buffet. It was fantastic, and they had lots of people going there to eat there.
It's a lot of loyal people. I feel like it's more of the same people coming in over and over again, and that's great.
But what happened was, I guess it was Chef Allen had it, and that's when it was excellent. And then someone else came in, and it went whoop, and I tried it 3 times, and I said to my husband, that's it, 3 times, and I'm out of here. The service was terrible, the food was terrible, and it just went kaput. I wouldn't go there.
They're losing so much. I feel like they are losing.
I agree with you.
Because when a golfer comes to I work at the Reading Country Club too. I'm a faculty there. People always come up to me, is the restaurant open? It's not open, and I feel like people can enjoy their time so much more.
Alex, thank you. We're going to adjourn the meeting here.
Just one really quick. You did a nice job speaking. You did a fine job. So don't worry about speaking in public. Next thing I want to say is talk to Mr. Campbell tomorrow. Unfortunately, we don't have media here today. I'll set you up with the woman who interviews and covers our district meetings. And I think she'd be willing to hear your point of view and hopefully get it in the paper.
Thank you.
So So see him tomorrow, let him know, I offered that, and I'll put you in touch.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good meeting adjourned. Thank you.
And the other word too.